it goes through cycles where there's different people that are getting promoted while other people's videos are being like kind of demoted, because there's somebody, I just noticed they're doing like similar videos to what I'm doing, and all of a sudden they're getting the kind of views that, not that, I mean, I don't really care, there's nothing I can do about it, but I just noticed like there's new people and they might do a similar video to what I did a few months ago that got like thousands of views, and they seem to be getting those thousands of views, but I'm not even getting like some of the people that were loyal commenters on my channel, they're not commenting on my videos, which tells me I know they like my videos. These are people that are subscribed to my channel. I feel like the notifications aren't working.
Well, no, notifications never really work. The thing that works is when you're a suggested video, and I don't think we're being suggested as much.
Yeah,
so,
probably not. So I can share it once I read to make sure.
Yeah, I'm still writing.
Okay, I'll wait. The only reason I said that is because I saw a notification pop up that it looked like it was about ready, but I know you're still.
Yeah, I'm describing it now. It has a title, but not a description yet.
Okay.
So I'm writing in the description, coronavirus in the news. What is the libertarian position?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just not going to put anything more in there because it would take me forever. I'm not a fast typer, and it's always stressful to have to do this, you know, at the last minute. I used to.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Like, okay, like for me, I'm pretty good under pressure, but like, okay, like you're fixing receipt tape, and this guy kept telling me yesterday how to fix it. He's like, oh, I can see this. It's not right. It's stuck. You need to do that. And I'm like, okay. And I'm usually pretty calm. I'm like, I just need to fix it. And he kept telling me what was wrong. And I'm like, it was really hard to concentrate because he kept like telling me I wasn't doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's already sticky. And it's kind of like you feel like you're under pressure because people want things fast and you have to fix this machine. And he can't even just be patient enough to let me fix it. And this is the funny part. I found out it was a thermal printer yesterday and that they don't have like an inkjet in them, because I'm like, afterwards it wasn't printing properly. So I had to ask the IT guy, like, why is it doing that? And he's like, oh, it's a thermal printer, and some of the sticky residue from the other print roll that you had got stuck. So it wasn't printing properly because that residue was blocking the printing, which was interesting. And I learned something. When you have time to do it correctly, you make sure none of that residue gets left behind, like none of the sticky paper. But because I was like under pressure and this guy was like telling me how to do it properly, I didn't like have time to think about how to do it correctly.
Okay, why don't you refresh and see if what we have is adequate? We're not going to say it's wonderful, but just adequate description.
Yes, definitely. I think that's good enough. Let me see. Okay. Where did you go? Okay, that's lovely.
And I will be depending on you to look and see if we have any comments, because my other computer is probably not going to show me what I want.
Well, what I'll do is I'll have it up in the screen. Like I watched the delayed response in anyway, so I'm going to read the caption right now just to make sure this looks like it's correct.
I'll see if I can share it on my phone.
I'm reading coronavirus in the news. What is the libertarian position? So it looks like it's good. I'm going to go ahead and share it now because we know for sure that it has the correct caption.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I'm going to share it on my channel. Now if I could make it be quiet, then I could possibly see the live chat, but the only way I can seem to make it be quiet here is to, it doesn't seem to give me the option of quietening. Oh, I suppose I could just reduce the volume on the telephone.
You could do that, maybe. That works.
Yes. Okay, then I could make that run. And I could maybe see if we have anything in chat. So there we are. So how are you, Julia? I saw that you were in the news.
I know, I was in the paper and it was interesting. But like, I feel like I take good pictures, but I'll just put it this way. Like, I don't know, like this person kind of caught me off guard because she's like, oh, look candid. And I'm like, okay. But I do find it pretty funny that I was checking out the book 1984 when they were taking my picture. I don't know why, because I was thinking about that yes, like 1984 is, are there any parallels here? I don't know.
Okay. Well, actually, you know what? We could start out. You could screen share that article if you like, just for a moment, so that our view, or would you rather not?
Um, it's not that I don't want to. I just
Okay.
it's a little, I shared it on Facebook, but I don't really want to.
Okay, that's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine. So anyway, at your place of employment, they are concerned with the coronavirus and they're trying to keep everything clean and keeping a distance between people. Is that right?
Yeah, because the CDC recommends, although somebody was listening to a YouTube podcast from a doctor saying it doesn't really matter anyway, but the CDC is recommending social distancing, which means you need to be at least 6 feet minimum apart. So they took away 33% of the chairs so people can't sit together. Because they're trying to enforce it right now because it sounds really funny and it sounds absurd and it looks absurd, but a lot of social events have been closed, postponed.
Yeah.
Disneyland has been shut down like for the first time ever. I don't remember. People can say, oh, this is a panic and the media is just making this up. But I never remember amusement parks being closed before or churches canceling their services in Southern California. This is the first time this has ever happened, or school districts just being closed indefinitely. Never.
Well, yeah, and it's not just in the United States, by the way. In Israel, the prime minister just spoke to the nation and he told them of some new rules and people are supposed to stand 2 meters apart.
Wow.
Yeah, and the private employers get to decide which employees they're going to keep at work, but those employees can't be all squished together. So some of the employees have to be told to work from home, and the other employees can stay there and stay apart.
I've been hearing this, not like essential duties, like people that have essential duties to the functioning, like other people can telecommute, but there's certain positions that are essential to the functioning of a business. So this is the thing like that I think is actually kind of interesting. Like I don't want to deviate, but we're all gonna maybe be under quarantine or self-imposed quarantine, but some people do have to continue being like stores, like if we are gonna sell anything or certain services, they can't completely shut down. Like, can
Well,
they?
I mean, they can. Yes, they can do whatever they want to because the president of the United States has declared a national emergency, which means they have suspended the Constitution.
Oh boy, that is like really hearkening to 1984. Like to me, that kind of
Yeah, they can tell us what to do. They can tell us not to sell something that we own. They can tell us that we can't go work, even if we want to work, and even if someone wants to employ us.
yeah,
So,
that shouldn't be right. Okay, I get it. Like, okay, we self quarantine if we want to, we abstain from large gatherings, like, but if in small groups, 2 people are healthy and they're wanting to work together, I am hoping it doesn't get to the point that we're like told, oh no, you can't do that. Like, how far is this going to go? Like,
well, I mean, it's even about medical personnel not being allowed to test everyone for the coronavirus. What do you think about that?
not being allowed to test everyone. That's interesting. Like, or being allowed to test everyone.
Not being allowed to right now.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. Like, who do they decide gets the test and who do they decide doesn't get the test?
Well, if you're not in dire straits, they don't want to test you.
They just want to test people that they think have been exposed. I noticed
No, not just exposed, but are very sick.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Wow.
They
Well,
say, if you have been exposed, you're fine, stay home,
okay.
but don't get tested.
That's interesting because the reason I bring that up is because locally, the people that they did test in San Bernardino County ended up not having it, but they were first responders who they said had been exposed to a situation where they helped somebody who did have coronavirus. So they were tested, but they are with a government agency. So maybe they have some
Right.
sort of preference for getting the test. I don't know the determination. And that's why I'm very tempered on what I'm saying about this, because I can't tell you why they had access to that test.
Well, okay, so on my Facebook page, and I have friends who are Democrats, friends who are Republicans, friends who are Libertarians, and all kinds of friends, some very conservative and some very progressive. And here's what I suggested. And here are the responses that I had.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, no picnic to be found that you do have the coronavirus. The consequences of that are not going to help you get better. I don't think that people should be required to pay for their own test. I don't know if you saw that on my Facebook
I saw
page.
people talking about that, like it's kind of the whole socialist, like some people are pro-socialist medicine, other people are not.
Yeah, but do you understand that I'm not pro-socialist medicine?
No, I know you're not. I know you're libertarian and you don't feel like people should have to pay for other people's tests. I totally get that.
No, but you're not listening. I said people should not have to pay for their own test. See, this is unexpected of me to say this.
Oh, really? Okay.
I did say that.
Okay.
I don't want to expose the people, but since you are a Facebook friend of mine, could you go and look at that particular thread? We're not going to read anybody's names, but I just want to talk about the responses, just the words that they said.
Okay.
Can we do that?
I'll do that. This is where I get really uncomfortable with things like this.
I know. We're not going to talk about
27% uncomfortable, guys.
I know. But see, you expected, like a lot of other friends that I have, that I would say each person should pay for their own test. And that's not what I said, because I'm a weird and crazy person.
Okay, no, I was just trying. Okay, like I said, I haven't really been following this the way everybody has. I followed it to some degree.
Yeah,
and
I want to explain myself. I know that a lot of people are disappointed in me right now because I've said that.
Okay. No. I was just trying to figure out what you said. This is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to comment on that anymore. You just keep talking. I'm not going to say anything else.
Okay, but it's okay for you to comment. I'm not mad or anything like that. A lot of people have this litmus test. They're either for socialism or they're against socialism. And they don't ask themselves, what is this test for? Is this test a good thing for the person being tested? Or is it a bad thing for the person being tested? Okay. And I think it matters what the test is for. Whether we pay for something depends on whether it's a value to us, right? Okay. So if the test were in order to find out, okay, you have this virus and we'll give you medicine and you'll get better. So the test would help you out, right? And it would be a secret test. And only you would know you had that disease. Just like, if you have a venereal disease, they don't announce that to everybody.
Of course not. Yeah, no. That would be horrible.
Right. So they allow you to secretly test and find out and get medicine to make yourself better. And we all agree that that's the right thing to do. Okay.
Of course. Yeah.
But if they're testing for the coronavirus, they're not going to keep that secret. They're going to say, I'm sorry, but you just tested for the plague, and we're going to send you to an isolation place, and you will lose all of your civil liberties in the process of having tested positive for this disease. You see how different that is?
Yeah, no, it's very different. I mean, that's alarming. That's
okay. So if that's the case, I don't think anybody should have to pay for the test, nor should they have to, submit to it as long as they're staying in their houses, right? And not bothering anybody else.
So you just don't feel like there should be a mandatory, like it shouldn't be mandatory for anybody to have to submit to it, but you also think nobody should have to pay for the test. Am I getting that correct?
Well, unless, if it's a private test where you just want to know if you have it or not,
Mhm.
and you can get that, private test kit and find out, and then only you will know that you have the coronavirus and your neighbors won't know that you have sure, you should pay for that test because it's only for you. But if it's for the government and your neighbors and everybody else, and they get to do things to you that you don't consent to
Mhm.
as a result of the outcome of that test, then at the very least, you should not have to pay for it. That doesn't make any sense.
I get what you're saying totally, and I'm sorry that I like misjudged you, but like I said, I wasn't really following the whole Corona thread to the extent that other people are. To be honest
No,
with
no, no, no. It's just all my friends, whether they happen to agree with me on almost everything because they're libertarian, or whether they're Republicans or Democrats, they were surprised by what I said because their position was like, if they're a Democrat, oh yeah, it should be free because medical care should be free. Um, and if they were Republicans, they said, oh no, each person should pay for their own test. Why should somebody get something for free at the expense of everybody else? And they weren't thinking about why we pay for stuff and why sometimes we don't pay for stuff.
you. I see what you're saying. That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if we want to, we can talk about, painting and having somebody sit for a portrait for you. So,
Okay.
and talk about who pays whom. So, if you are a famous artist and everybody wants a portrait of themselves from you, then they pay you for them to sit and for you to paint them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
that because they're celebrity basically in their field at that point.
yeah, but let's say you're starting out. You're just starting out as an artist and nobody's ever heard of you. And you want to paint a lot of different people with different faces and stuff like that. And you want people to sit for you, then you have to pay them. They're your model and you pay them.
I've seen that, or I've seen like on Craigslist, people used to be, if they were photographers or amateur painters, they would say, I will give you like a copy of the work, like as a payment, as a way to get more models. I've seen that also as well, like for amateur photographers and artists.
Right. But you see who you are and what you want and what your situation is vis-a-vis the other person determines who pays whom.
Hmm. I see what you're saying. I do get that parallel.
So again, like testing for driving. Why do they test people to see if they can drive?
Well, the whole notion behind that is they want to make sure people have a minimum knowledge of the rules of the road before they're given a driver's license. But I know you have a unique perspective on the driver's license. I'm not completely anti-driver's license, but the problem I have with the driver's license is that a lot of workplaces mandate that people must have a driver's license to work for them, and that's not always because they're private. It's government entities that do that, by the way. And I don't think that the
Yeah,
government.
but that's really because the driver's license is often used as identification, I think.
But here's the thing: in California and many other states, you can still get an ID card or a passport, and you can
I
use.
know you can, but they still have it in the works because we don't have a national ID.
They do to some extent, but they also now have this thing where they think that you need to take a driving test, even if your job is not related to driving. And we all think
Okay,
it's
I
absurd.
don't. Yeah, that is absurd. Okay, I'll agree with you there. I did not know to what extent
Well, that's
that.
a new thing. Like that's a new thing.
Uh-huh.
They're pushing this driving test. Like everybody has to take it. Like that works for government agencies. Like, and that's ridiculous. Like even if your job has something to do with driving. Why?
Right. Okay, I agree with you. Okay, but this is way, way beyond what a driving test was originally supposed to be for. It
Yeah.
was supposedly to test to see whether you were a danger to the public, right?
Mhm.
As a driver. So they wanted to winnow out all the people whose driving is so erratic or wrong, or they don't understand the rules of the road or whatever, that they would be a danger to the public. That's the reason they originally gave to test people on their driving.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
one, you know, there could be a different reason you might want to test someone to be a driver. For instance, say you are a freight company and you hire drivers and you want to make sure they don't crash your vehicles, and you want to make sure that they bring the goods in on time and are safe and don't hurt other people, so that the company will not get sued, because of their bad driving. That would be a different reason why someone might want to test a driver. So in the case of a freight company testing the drivers, they would also want to know that they would take good care of the engine of the car and make sure that they wouldn't, just the same way if you're riding a horse, you don't want to have the horse have a heart attack on the way.
You want to make sure you know how to actually take care of the animal, that you're not like just going to starve it and hope that it makes
right.
it
So,
or something.
Yeah, so the same thing with the engine. You want somebody who won't rev the engine up wrong and do all sorts of other things, which are not a danger to the public per se, but could be a cost efficiency issue for the company that is running those vehicles. Okay,
Yeah, for
so
sure,
I understand that. But when a private citizen who's not even a commercial driver goes in to be tested, they're not supposed to be tested on how well they take care of the car, whether they, lube it, and whether they make the surface of the car shiny by washing it, or even, take good care of the engine. But the people who work for the government to test you as a driver, they don't remember what the purpose of the test was anymore. So by the time you come in, I can tell you that when I was, 16, going in to get my driver's license, and my father made me come in with a car. It was a Ford Maverick that needed a new engine, and it was a stick shift. And because it needed a new engine, I was riding the clutch, because every time you changed gears, it tended to stall. So I was kind of babying the engine so it wouldn't stall on us. And so I was riding the clutch, and the person testing me flunked me on my driving test because I was riding the clutch. But that didn't serve, that wasn't dangerous to the public. The only thing it would do is wear the clutch down so that my father would have to buy a new clutch. He actually needed to buy a new engine anyway. So the engine later was, replaced. But anyway, what I'm saying is people forget what the test is for, and it makes a difference who you're testing this for, the public or the person going in.
That's a good point. Like, who is the test for? So that has a lot of your feeling on determining who should pay for it, correct? Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, okay. You got it right. Yeah, so without, talking about specific people, can you see some of the responses on that?
I didn't even look, to be honest with you, because I don't feel like I have enough say.
Okay, well, so my Democrat friend said, yes, of course, it's every person in an emergency such as this should be given a free test because it's for the good of everybody. Okay, and I did say, well, if it's for the good of the public, but the public and the individual being tested are not the same, and we have a conflict of interest. But the progressives don't take into account that there is a conflict of interest. But the Republican or conservatives said, no, absolutely not. Let them pay for their own test. Because why should somebody else have to pay for your test? Well, is it a test you even want? That makes a difference, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, maybe you should think about it that way. Do you want the test? I guess if you want to continue going out in public and you are going to be part of public society, then yes, you probably do want the test. But if you just want to remain like somewhat isolated from the public, then no, you shouldn't have to take the test. That would be my take on it.
Right. Right now, a lot of people are confused about this, and they're actually asking to be tested, and they're told, you don't have a high enough priority. We won't let you be tested.
Is that because they don't have enough tests at the moment, or they just want to conserve the test for people that they truly believe need the test?
Well, a part of that has to do with certification for the testing. So if you watched the live stream with Nicholas Sarwark, he had something to say about that. Would you like to share his live stream?
Let me see if I can find it.
Oh, we have people listening.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. I said Nell was commenting on the test. And she's actually one of our
Yeah, that's very nice, Nell, that you responded. Over here, 200 scientists, that would be in the UK.
Nicholas Sarwark, chairman of the.
Okay. So what time point would you say in this video that he covered like something regarding that issue?
Well, I'm not sure, about 5 minutes into it, something like that, I guess.
5 minutes. Okay, so I'll just go to the 5-minute mark point.
Okay. Now, what is it? Can you explain what Nell said?
Okay, let me go. Okay, I think what she's trying to say is, okay, so she said, over here, 200 scientists have had a go at the government to tighten up as they feel it's not enough. Maybe, I guess what she was saying is that they're not doing enough to contain the situation. That's kind of what it sounds like to me, but maybe Nell can come back and like give us more information about that. So let me go in and see if I can share. Do you want me to go ahead and share from the 5-minute mark?
Okay, let's do that.
Okay. All right. Get it up here. Get it nice and high. Okay. Here's Nicholas Sarwark, and I'm gonna make him audible again.
Needs to do is follow essentially a Hippocratic oath of government. The first thing they should do is not do any harm. They should not be in the way. If you have a doctor or a scientist who wants to help others, and you have someone who needs help, we don't need a bureaucrat standing in between them saying, no, you can't help people. What you can do is wash your hands. It's very important to wash your hands. The virus lives outside of the body for up to a week. Usually isn't that long, but it can be up to a week depending on what kind of surface. And it's a lung virus. If it gets in your lungs and you get it badly, it has been likened from some survivors to drowning. Essentially, your lungs fill with fluid and you cannot breathe. And that, if you are older and have poor respiratory function, that's how you end up dying. But even if you don't die, it's very dangerous, frightening, and may have long-term effects. So how does a virus get into your lungs? Well, somebody could cough or sneeze in your face if they have the virus, which means if you see anyone who's coughing or sneezing, maintain at least a 1 meter, about this far, farther than you can see, 1 to 2 meter distance from anyone coughing or sneezing. That'll prevent you from getting the droplets into your mouth. If you feel sick and you have a mask, wear a mask. Not for yourself, it protects other people from fluids coming out of your nose or mouth. If
Did you want me to keep going, or?
Well, I mean, he mentioned something there that I thought was going someplace. He said the government should first do no harm. And he said, if a scientist or a medical professional comes up with a test, the government shouldn't make it impossible to use the test. So I guess we can come back and I can tell you what it was he was referring to with regard
Okay,
to.
do you want to stop here then at that time point, or just?
Yeah, let's go
Okay.
ahead because I'm not sure that I remember exactly where. Okay, so there was this doctor, I think in Seattle, he said, that had devised some tests to determine whether her patients had the coronavirus, but those tests were not FDA approved or CDC approved. They were not government approved, whatever entity of the government. She went ahead and tested them because they kept telling her, no, you're not allowed to do that. Don't test, don't test, don't test. But she wanted to know if her patients had that. So she tested.
Okay, sounds fair, because I don't feel like if we have that information, we should be told, no, you can't, even though it might not make CDC approval. If you, as a private entity, want to test and people are willing to pay for that test, why not?
Of course. And so I agree with Nicholas Sarwark on this point. I think you do. We all agree.
Yeah, no, on this point, but I think some people might not. They might be like, oh my gosh, like the CDC didn't approve that test. But we also have to remember the FDA approves doing drug trials in India, and those aren't always really tightly monitored either. So we have to be really careful when we say, well, this government agency always approves every test. Like, the pharmaceutical industry is a very tricky thing. A private entity might have more protocols and controls over a test than one that's approved by the CDC or the FDA at certain points. We can't, I'll leave it at that.
Right, right. So yeah, I totally agree with Nicholas Sarwark on this point. One of the things that made it so hard to test at the very beginning was that there weren't approved tests, and without the approval, you couldn't test. Oh my goodness, it's just a test. It's not even a treatment. It's not like it's medicine or you could die if the test is wrong. It's just a way to find something out. That's all it is.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not medicine.
exactly. Well, here's an example. Like, it's kind of different. Okay, Ancestry DNA, 23andMe, they had the medical test, like where you could find out many different things that could be in your genome. It was a test that people paid for. I think it used to be about $500 a few years back. People paid for this out of their own pocket. Nobody else was financing this test, but the FDA came in and cracked down and said, well, we shouldn't give out that information to people because it may be misleading, and they might like do something with that information that wouldn't be good unless they talk to their doctor. But here's the thing. It was genetic researchers who created that test, who made it available to the public, and private people paid for it. So I don't see how that test was hurting anybody. But then now the FDA's finally approved another one where it gives you some information, but they've taken a lot of the information away that you used to be able to have access to, because the FDA said it wasn't appropriate for us to know these things that might be in our genome.
Yeah, well, that's completely wrong. The thing I would be concerned about is when you're getting that test kit, are they sharing that information about you with the medical establishment without your approval? That would be what I would be.
Well, they do to some extent. You have to read the fine point of 23andMe, and yes, they do share some of it, and you can opt out of sharing your information if you choose to do so, but they still share some of your information. So if you completely don't want that information shared, then no, you shouldn't take those tests.
I mean, let me give you an example. Some people have genetics that make them predisposed to have Alzheimer's disease early on. Well, if you're looking for health insurance and they know that, they might not want to insure you, or they might want to charge you a lot higher for insurance and so on and so forth. So there are situations where you just don't want to share that. You might want to know that for yourself so that you would take better care of yourself so that you don't come down with that disease, because it's not predetermined that you will have that disease, but
it's just it's a variant in your genome that could determine that you might have
but the probability is there. And insurance companies use probabilities.
Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying. But if it's a private test and somebody wants to pay for it themselves, I don't think it has to be a CDC or FDA approved test. I think if a scientist or a researcher has developed a test and people want to pay for this out of pocket themselves, yeah, why not? That's not hurting anybody.
Right. Absolutely. So again, the big question is, what is the test for? Who is it for? Who is paying for it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't like the idea that if you do take a coronavirus test, that yes, they share this information, and they do give a lot of identifying information about people, to where there's a lot of people that are very nosy or just have bad intentions, and they'll go digging for information. And I don't know, like some of these Facebook groups really scare me, Aya, where people share too much information about other people that those people might not want shared about themselves, and they feel that they have a right to do it because of public information. And it kind of goes to what you were saying about China and the social credits. I feel like it's headed in that. I don't really like that, like that people think it's okay to share this information publicly. I don't think that should happen.
I agree. I totally agree. But there are like 7 FEMA centers,
Mm-hmm.
and anybody who tests positive will end up in one of their camps. So
That's what they're saying, like that they would be isolating people to treat them. That's happening in China right now, it seems, but they don't want to give out the information exactly about the conditions. So I don't know what to say about it. But anyway, what were your thoughts on all that?
well, I'm concerned about it. I just think that before anybody gives permission to be tested, they should be aware of this.
Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying. Inevitably though, like I guess we'll just have to see how this plays out. I'm trying to have more of a tempered response to it. I do see the fact that it could become a pandemic, which it seems like it's headed that way. I think it's ignorant to say that this isn't a problem. I find that highly troubling that people are saying, oh no, the coronavirus doesn't exist, it's just a cold. That's a little scary to me. But my question is how we handle it after from here.
Well, I think the school closures might be a good thing.
Mm-hmm. And sporting events, Disneyland's they closed down like for a day with the measles, but to close Disneyland for 2 weeks, that's never happened. I will be honest with you though, I'm very concerned about the hospitality industry, and this is going to hurt the economy pretty bad in states like California and in countries like Italy that are very much surrounded by tourism and trade, and it's very troubling and problematic.
Actually, I heard that there is provision for using hotels as places where people who have the virus will be sent to be isolated. And some people say it's sort of like quartering soldiers.
Interesting. I haven't heard about that. That's interesting.
But I mean, there are opportunities. I don't want to seem like I'm all, dark about this. There are opportunities. I think people who are homeschooling have now the opportunity to get some of the best teachers to teach their children.
That's true. I guess you could sign up to take an online class. You could do that. You could find a tutor a little bit more readily since a lot of classes are going online.
Yeah. So, I'm sure good things will come of all this. It's not all bad.
My only concern is, okay, how long does this last? Like, how long do we wait? How long do we find out? Like, before we know everything's going to be okay, or is it not going to be okay? I guess I'm not going to be all doom and gloom. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But the elderly population seems to be more impacted by all this.
Yeah, it's true. And I am unfortunately part of that elderly population
Well,
now.
it's more like the people that they're really, really worried about are the people over 80, because there was a lady that was admitted to the hospital on March 9th for COVID-19, and she passed away a couple days ago. Like, it was that quick, like within a few days. Like,
Yeah.
the over 80 population, it's pretty stark like that. So they're saying that now, and this is my other concern, Aya, is like our treatment, like convalescent homes for the elderly, are those safe? Because they have a
No,
large.
they're not. They're not. And people are funny about that. So all these people who are trying to think brightly, think happy thoughts, are saying, oh, they're not allowing people to visit the convalescent homes or the nursing homes. So people who have children at home who didn't go to school should have them write little cards and draw for things for the elderly and send it to the homes. And they're not thinking, don't you realize that if you touch that stuff and you give it to the elderly, they could get the coronavirus from you if you have it? I mean, it's different if you want to send them an email with a picture that your child drew, but they're saying send it through the mail. That doesn't make any sense.
No, I don't even think like there should be, if we're worried about this right now and we have found out that the elderly have a very high attrition rate from the COVID-19, I don't think young people should be in contact with them until we know that everything's going to simmer
Well,
down.
yeah, that is already in place. But what happens is that those poor people who are in those nursing homes are now not going to get any family visit unless they do it through Skype.
Yeah, but here's another issue that I have. Like, this is my opinion, it's nobody else's opinion. I don't like the idea that we put elderly people away in these
Oh
facilities.
yeah, no, I agree with you. See, this is where, I don't like institutionalization
I
at all.
hate institutionalization. And the thing is, like, traditionally, like in Syria, Lebanon, China, people take care, like it's third, fourth generation. They don't do this garbage. Why are you putting your parents in a home like that anyway? It's wrong. And I don't care if anybody hates me for saying that. It shouldn't happen. You should take care
Okay,
of
well, I mean, not in every case is it that the bad children are putting their elderly parents in a home. Sometimes, there is no family or there's just a very,
Yeah.
uh, sometimes the children die first and the older adults live longer. It doesn't always happen exactly the way you think it would.
No, I mean, I'm not saying in every case it's that case, and I'm not saying all the people who do that are bad, but there's a lot of people that think, oh, like once their parents are old enough to go to, okay, there's a really upscale one in our city, and they're like, well, this is so great for them because they can just be with other people that are older, and they can have this like limited existence, and this is really wonderful for them. But not everybody wants to do that. Like, I just
No,
think
no, of course. And the funny thing is, even the people who, 20 years ago were saying this is so great, once they get into their 80s, they don't want to leave their home that they're used to. They would rather stay at home.
And I guess I shouldn't feel that way because I do tend to lean a little bit more libertarian now, but I still have a problem with this whole institutionalization of like any group of people, really. I don't really like it.
No, I don't like institutionalization of chimpanzees. I don't like institutionalization of children. And I don't like institutionalization of handicapped populations or of the elderly. I don't
Yeah.
like any of that. But of course, it has to, the decision has to be made with consent.
Yeah.
And some people maybe want to go to a place like that, and that's fine. They have every right to. Okay, so
No, I understand. I'm just sharing my view. Okay.
yeah, no, I agree with you. My feelings are the same as yours. I can tell you in Israel, we do it a little bit differently.
How do you do it there? I would like to hear about that.
Okay, I mean, somebody's going to jump up and say it's exploitation of people from the Philippines, but there is a provision. The government allows people from the Philippines who have been through a course of how to take care of elderly people to come to Israel for a limited time only if they have found an employer in Israel, and that employer is an elderly person in need of help in the home. And that way, if you're an Israeli and you're 85 years or up, you don't even have to prove that you are experiencing any health problems. You're that age, they'll say that's fine. If you want somebody from the Philippines to come and help you, you can obviously you have to pay them. You have to pay them.
Yeah, you have to put aside the resources, of course.
Yes, but it's reasonable for those Israelis, and it's a lot of money for the people from the Philippines, and they send money back to their families, and so they're happy to do the work. And the people that I've seen there who are doing the work are very kind, very caring people. And so it's not that these elderly adults don't also have children, and their children still work, and the children come and visit, and they also oversee what the person from the Philippines does. But it means that the elderly person is not institutionalized, isn't in a hospital all the time, isn't in a nursing home all the time, and can, be in their own surroundings and control more what happens to them.
And I don't think this is so horrible, because if anybody actually knew something about the economy of the Philippines, the people that volunteer to do that, that train to do that, to do convalescent care in Israel, they're going to make much more money going to Israel to do that than if they stay in the Philippines, where the stark reality is a lot of people are living in dire poverty, where they barely have enough money to buy rice and meat for their family. They can send money home. It's not a bad thing for them at all. Although in our Western mindset, we're going to say, well, that person's not being paid a minimum wage, like they're being exploited, but that's not really true if we look at conversion of economics.
Yeah, no, when they come there, there's an agency that takes care of that. They do have health insurance. The person who hires them has to pay for health insurance while they're in Israel. There are provisions, and there's severance pay when it ends, but they do have to leave the moment it ends. So, well, within 2 weeks or so, if they don't find a new employer, let's say the person they were taking care of dies of old age, they need to work very quickly to find another employer, or they're out of that country. They are going to be sent on a plane back, because that's the immigration law right now.
And it seems to work. And if it works between the Filipinos and the Israelis, what's wrong with that? I think that's a great system.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't like institutionalization either. And one of the scary things about being institutionalized is you usually don't have 2 meters between you and the next person, and you can't maintain that. And so when something like this comes along, like the coronavirus, it just decimates elderly populations that are in close proximity to one another.
No, I totally that's an interesting point. How come, so in other public institutions, we can postpone events, we can take chairs away, but for the elderly that are in a convalescent home, it's not upscale. A lot of them share rooms. Where are you going to put these other people?
Yeah.
That's not realistic. Yeah, you can't move them somewhere else, really.
Right. Here's the thing. I don't know if you watched the videos from China when this was new, when we didn't have it here, but when the coronavirus started over there. I watched this video of a woman. I mean, it was like there was a woman and a child they were in an apartment. Maybe they were looking down through their balcony or their window, whatever. And down below, there was another woman. It was a woman who had tested positive coronavirus. And they were taking her and escorting her into an isolation thing. It's like on a vehicle, but the moment she goes in there, she's isolated so that she doesn't pass the virus to other people. She didn't want to go in there.
She didn't want to go. Like
she started screaming the moment they had her in there.
Yikes. Well, I know China doesn't want to give out a lot of the information about specifically the numbers of people that have contracted or the conditions, and some footage has come out that some of these treatment centers are makeshift and the hygiene is not up to standards. I've heard that.
That's right. Because, once you're institutionalized, and it doesn't matter whether it's in a prison, in an orphanage,
Mhm.
A nursing home, you're not paying for the care that you're getting. So, it happens.
And I think families, like at the end of the day, this might be a moderately popular opinion and not, I think your own family cares more about your grandparents, your children than a stranger. I know people say that's not true, but of course it's true. I think families care more about each other than somebody you don't know. But that's
Yeah,
reality. Let's be honest. People won't say that, but that's really reality.
right. So these are all things that people need to understand. And I think the United States hasn't had this kind of epidemic since 1918, and people just don't remember what it's like.
And when you think about it, that was before radio was really widespread, before television, before the internet. So people they have no reference point really.
Yeah, Donald Trump didn't realize his own grandfather died, yeah, of the Spanish flu.
See, that's so funny because a lot of people, they don't really know anything about their family tree. Well, I started learning things about my family tree just by researching it myself. But I would say like a lot of people by the second generation, they can't speak the language that their parents spoke. Sometimes, I mean, in your case, like I think in very educated families where people make an effort to maintain that language and teach it to their kids and onward, but a lot of people don't. Like they don't remember the language, the culture. A lot of things are lost, like just knowledge. Like how many people know that their grandparents served in World War II or great grandparents? Maybe they don't. They might not even know that anymore because that generation's passing away.
Right. Yeah, no. So now if I mention something that happened in the 1960s, that's already, my daughter says, well, that was in the olden days. I don't care what happened then.
But we should care. I mean, well, I care. And I think people who like but I feel like this is where we need to have that reference point, and we shouldn't be so quick to discard the past and say the past doesn't matter and that we live in the present only. We need to be aware of things that happen for sure.
Right. So, yeah, I think that people have chosen the sides about this coronavirus based on their politics.
I don't think that, okay, here's the thing about a pathogen. A pathogen doesn't discriminate based on your politics.
No.
I don't know, like people that I know that are savvy know that the coronavirus is a real thing. Now, the politics side of it, I'm going to be really honest with you. I am leaning more libertarian on a lot of things nowadays, but if it's going to be a two-party debate where people debate about like how the liberals feel or how the conservatives feel, those are going to be conversations where I'm not going to really be participating because I find that these are the divisive conversations that are really tearing our country apart. And this is the wrong time to do it, especially if there's going to be a pandemic. Maybe people should dispense with that.
Right, but I'm just worried that people don't even realize what a test is for and who should pay for any service based on whether it's for them or for somebody who has a conflict of interest with them,
Mhm. So if it's somebody that has a conflict of interest that's a larger entity than such as the government, then definitely you shouldn't pay for your own tests. To me, that makes common sense.
Yeah, I would
So,
think so.
I hadn't really thought about that because, like I said, I've read a few things about like the spread of the coronavirus, but I'm not digging as deep into this issue as other people have. I just really
Right.
want to throw that out there. I don't really know a lot about the coronavirus. I just know that it can spread very easily, and that's about all I can say I know about it, really.
Well, listen, what's known about it is some people will have it and will not have any symptoms at all.
Yeah.
So they're sort of carriers, and other people will have mild symptoms and get over it fast.
Yeah, I would say the middle demographic, like age group, they might be a carrier. Like there's a very good case that maybe a healthcare worker could be a carrier and they might not have symptoms, so they would need that test, I guess, to determine if they're carrying the pathogen. if they've been exposed.
Right. Yeah. I would think that in a healthcare situation, you would want to test your employees, but the employer should pay for that, not the employee.
Oh
Because,
no, the employer should pay for it. That makes sense to me. I mean,
yeah, and again, when I say that, people say, you sound like a socialist. No, I'm not. I'm just talking common sense about whose interest is involved here. You
I'm glad
understand?
to actually hear this, Aya, because it sounds like you show that libertarianism is much more complex than people think it is. Like, that's a good point, because
Yeah.
not everything's black and white. There's variations of things, right?
Right. And I think that Nicholas Sarwark had some things to share. I recommend that everybody listen to everything that he said. And while I don't always see eye to eye with Nicholas Sarwark, he said some pretty sensible things.
Well, I think he did. I am, the only thing I'm really going to say, though, that I do find very perplexing, and I'm not like wanting to get down on people that are pro-Trump, but before he announced that it was an emergency, and I'm not sure I agree with the direction he took it in every sense, but when he just pretended like the coronavirus wasn't a big thing, there were people on Facebook, I did see this, they were saying it wasn't a real pathogen. And that kind of scared me a bit. Not everybody, but there were a few people saying it was made up, so people would fight over toilet paper.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's some Democrats that are saying that too. They're saying that, oh, like this is made up. Like, oh, the media just wants people to panic. But then why are they closing down schools if it's made up? Like, people are coming down with this virus. People are dying. I don't think we should be saying that this is all made up to scare the public.
No, no, I don't think it's all made up. I think there's enough information still available on the web internationally so that we can find things out.
No, definitely, of course, yeah. But that was the only thing that I wanted to comment on, though, is that there were a group of people that are saying this is made up. It's not real. Like, that's how far conspiracy theories have gone. And not all conspiracy theories are bad, but when they start going off the deep end and saying that nobody can ever get sick or die from a pathogen, that does alarm me a little bit. I'm like, that's not good.
Yeah, well, I'm at risk. I'm almost to the age group where you're at risk. And besides that, I have, symptoms with my breathing, which
yeah, with asthmatics, they did mention in one podcast that if you have like any kind of asthma allergy, sensitivity, that yes, you don't want to be in a room, like even a room, don't forget the 2-meter thing. You don't want to be in the same room. That's what they're saying. Like, I heard
right.
that.
Yes. So I have a certain supply of stuff for me and for Bo and for the birds and the dogs. And so hopefully we'll be able to last it out. But if things get any worse, I'm thinking of getting chickens because I'm told that in Galveston, when you go to the store, you can find avocados, but you can't find eggs.
Yeah, you can find avocados right now because it's avocado season, but then in a few weeks you won't. So maybe you should get chickens so you can have your own eggs again. Didn't you have chickens for a while?
Yes, I did. And then the dogs killed them all.
It can happen. I mean, that's life, I tried to have a garden for a while. I won't have a garden again because the surfer dudes that live above me like killed it with their salty water things that
oh, that's
hang
terrible.
over the side. And then I barely had any sunlight, so it became this battle. And I don't like to spray a lot of pesticides, so it became this battle between salty water, sunlight, and just infestation of insects. But I had someone recently tell me that I must have a garden in my backyard, even though I tried to explain to them that these things were making it almost impossible to ever grow anything anymore, and it became progressively worse. But they didn't believe me, and I was totally wrong.
Well, I have a friend who's trying hydroponics. I know absolutely nothing about that, so don't ask me.
Yeah.
But maybe there's a way to do it. You might even be able to do it completely indoors. I don't know.
Yeah, I just feel like, okay, just in my experience, I'm not going to have a garden until I can have a house that have east and west facing windows, because if you live in a building that has this is just reality, that has the sun, raising in the east in the morning, in the afternoon you have no sunlight. So you have sunlight for 2 hours per day, and that makes it really hard to grow anything. And that's it. So I can't in my situation unless I want to like just, it was a lot of work to make one tomato plant grow, and it looked really pretty, and it produced 6 tomatoes in one season. Oh wow, like I really want to keep like knocking myself out for that. No, I don't. So I gave up on it because it was so much work.
Yeah, I understand. I do not have a green thumb, so I'm not even trying to grow vegetables, in addition to the fact that I'm not really a vegetable loving person.
Yeah, I know you, but the chickens, I think for you, Aya, you would
Yeah.
get eggs out of it. So I think that might be a great experiment. And then maybe, like, I don't know, if bartering became a thing, you could trade some eggs for, I don't know, something else that someone else has. Like,
Right, sure.
do that. And bartering is kind of a neat system, even though they say we shouldn't barter anymore. But why can't people trade things if they want to? Like,
They can. I don't think the only reason the government doesn't want us bartering is because it's hard for them to figure out the income tax.
and they want us to pay income tax on everything, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous. But anyway,
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that too much. No.
I'm not going to even worry about that. I don't want to take this off course, this conversation that you're having about COVID-19. I think it's interesting. I'll just say that people should listen to what Nicholas Sarwark had to say on the topic. It'd be good to listen to that.
Okay, and about the toilet paper, and by the way, I suggest that everybody listen to that beautiful song by
I
Dan
loved it. Yeah.
Kelly, Number Two. The name of the song is Number Two. But anyway, I also feel a little bit uncomfortable when people start lecturing about not stockpiling toilet paper or other necessities. Now, I personally do not have more toilet paper than all of us in my family need, and I'm not stockpiling to resell, but I'm kind of upset that they are now trying to punish people who are reselling what they have. I don't believe in rationing. I don't think rationing is a good thing. And I think that even in times of dire need, it's those people who find a way to find a supply who should be paid extra because they're doing hard work.
Yeah, and they saved something and they thought ahead, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, like when you're younger, you're taught, well, the black market is this really bad thing, but didn't the black market kind of save some people that were in camps, like in that
Yes, yes.
So
in
is the
Our
black
Lady
market? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, in Our Lady of Kaifeng, if it weren't for the Chinese on the black market selling eggs to the people in the camp, they would all have starved to death.
See, so maybe you need to have, maybe the free market isn't as bad as people think. And another thing I actually liked about the free market is a lot of people that are in the tech industry, they're coming up with ideas that are better for the environment, clean air, and they're very pro free market. But then people have a problem with that because the government's not regulating it.
Right. No, I think a lot of businesses are thinking ahead of the government. They sent their workers home ahead of time. It's the government employers who don't send people home.
Yeah, that's pretty much the case. I mean, unless they shut down the government because they can't balance the budget, then they send people home. That's pretty much the only time they do it, right?
Right. So, yeah, I think that employers are not such horrible people in general. They don't want their employees to die. They find ways to make things work. A lot of people in the big tech companies have been working from home for quite some time, and that's a really good solution. I'm excited about the possibility of teaching from home because, see, I've been under quarantine long before the COVID-19 epidemic. I have to stay home with Bo. But I would love to teach, I would love to teach. And now if people can't go to school or to university, it's a good time for me to start teaching, don't you think?
I think so. So I think maybe you need to find a way where you could do some sort of teaching, like with all your different skills with Zoom. I think that would be great.
Well, I'd like you to be involved in it too, Julia. You have a higher education.
I do have a higher education. I have a degree that I feel like maybe I don't utilize enough sometimes. I'm like, people keep telling me that I'm not doing enough with my life. Isn't that great when people tell you that you're not doing enough with your life? Like, people tell me that. I'm like, okay.
Really, what people say that? I don't think any of our guests on our live streams have ever said that or thought that.
No, nobody that knows what I do with my blog, and like you and people like that who see what I do with all these different things that I do with my, abilities and knowledge. But there's just other people in my own life that say I should have done more with my life. It's ridiculous. Believe me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think some of us who do a lot more end up being thought to have done a lot less just because we didn't do it through the particular channels that people think are okay.
But I see, that's another thing too. Like, I actually think that's ridiculous, because there's a lot of people that I think have done quite a bit that have a great academic background, such as yourself, who have done research, and other people that have done a lot, and maybe they're not teaching at a government funded institute, but I don't think that means that they're not doing things. You have to think for yourself, right? Like,
I think so. I think that
yeah.
all new discoveries come from people who think for themselves.
Yeah, well, of course. And you just have to find a way to, I guess, get through all the bureaucracy of this current situation. But I don't know. I feel like I do think there's ability to have maybe a libertarian perspective on things, but it seems like more and more people don't want that at all. Like, on either side of the political spectrum, it seems like everybody's very pro bureaucracy.
Well, what concerns me is that the Libertarian Party has not canceled its convention yet, and it's set to be in Austin in about 2 months.
I'm thinking, though, if they don't cancel it soon, this is what's going to happen. A lot of people are already self-quarantining, or like they're going to be concerned about, like, if this doesn't calm down, like if, let's say, within the next month, like the corona virus is not as big of a threat as we think it is right now, then maybe things will be okay. But if they don't have a response soon, a lot of schools have already canceled their graduation, by the way. They've put off, like, they're postponing things like a couple months in advance. If they don't do something, people are just going to do something themselves and not show up. So I don't know.
I think we should make it electronic this year. Then maybe you and I could also participate.
Well, that's a question too. Why can't we have electronic conventions? Like, that would, okay. We complain about all the no, what's right, like political financing, and how foreign entities can get involved in our elections, blah blah blah, and all that. And people are very upset about it. But maybe if conventions were online, like, that would be less of an issue. Like, everybody could participate to some degree.
Right. You wouldn't have to take time off from work, and you wouldn't have to be rich in order to participate.
Yeah. And it's not always like, people say it's a liberal versus conservative. Like, there's this perception that, like, conservative people have more money, but that's really not true. A lot of very progressive liberal people have a lot of money, and they back a lot of things. So it's not that. It's like, basically, who has more backing. Well, like with Gary Johnson, like, he didn't get to be in the national debates, and I feel like a lot of that had to do with who was financing his political campaigns and the amount of money he had to put into his versus the two national parties. Really,
I'm not sure that it was about money, though. In that,
you don't think it was in this case? Like,
no,
okay.
They just did not want a libertarian to be even considered.
Yeah, maybe that was the case. But I will say it's interesting to see what happens, and I think people do need to be aware that the COVID virus is a real thing. It's not made up. So maybe you should be a little bit more thoughtful about that.
Yeah, definitely not made up. And I think we're going to see a lot of crazy stuff happen.
Mm-hmm.
If you are in any way feeble or older or whatever, you really should self-quarantine. That's certainly what I'm trying to do.
I'm not like I can't just self quarantine, but what I'm doing is basically what I do all the time. I'm not like I like to go out occasionally, but I'm not an extremely social person. This is what I find really funny about the COVID-19 thing. I guess like for me, I guess you're gonna get this, Aya, is I'm not like highly social. I'm not out and about. Like I'll go shopping and sometimes I go do things, but I'm not going to all these sporting events and all these events. So I guess I'm okay with the whole thing. Like some people are really depressed that they can't go to all these major events right now.
I know. Yeah, it doesn't affect me at all.
Yeah, it doesn't really impact me because even though I work and I sometimes go shopping and things like that, and I'll see my family and friends like some occasionally, I don't feel like I'm missing. Like people are literally saying, what am I going to do for entertainment? How am I going to entertain myself? How am I going to feel stimulated? Well, I don't know, whatever happened to reading a book or looking at YouTube or just like working on like there's so many things I don't really get it. Maybe it's because I'm more of a homebody that I just don't really understand like this whole, oh my gosh, like I might have to stay home. It's so depressing.
Yeah, well, I like to paint. So
See?
this is what I recently did.
That's beautiful. I love it. It's so pretty. Like her hair. We
Uh-huh.
have to talk about her hair. I love curly hair. And I'm just like, thank you for showing how beautiful curly hair is and wavy hair is. I just think it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if if the long hair people will like it or not, because I have this feeling that some people think long hair has to not be curly or whatever.
Okay. This is one thing we could talk about if you have a little bit more time. And I think
Okay, sure.
tip on something. Okay. I love long hair and a lot of people in my channel do like long hair, but I noticed that more of my audience is from India and Indonesia, like countries where women have like naturally wavy hair, or the Middle East, or like Brazil and Mexico where women have naturally wavy hair, which I do. And your hair is wavy curly too, right?
Yeah. Mine's way too, it's kind of coarse, and I've always had problems trying to keep it from tangling.
And this is the thing that I have experienced a little bit. Okay, so it seems like people want like stick straight hair, and I was noticing, okay, I don't want to be, this is just reality, and I finally figured it out recently. A lot of the popular YouTubers where you see their long hair, some of them are straightening their hair, but they keep saying, oh, you shouldn't put heat on your hair because it's so damaging. But in some of those videos, like occasionally a woman will straighten her hair to make it look straight. So there's this perception that the really popular long hair videos are with people that have sick straight hair. But I'm going to be honest, that's like with more of the American European viewers, because I think the Asian people and the Middle Eastern people, like Israelis, Syrian, Lebanese, like Indian, or even Mexico, Brazil, I think they like wavy curly hair. It's just the group of people that we see posting a lot, they just like this really straight hair because that's their bias, I guess. Like, but there's other people that do like wavy hair. Like the Indian people love long hair and their hair is not sick straight. Have you noticed that? It's more wavy.
Yes, although I will give you this, the Chinese, if you are ethnically Chinese,
Yeah, it's straight.
it's straight, very straight.
It's
And
very straight, but it's a different kind of straight. It's a naturally straight hair. It's like a very thick, heavy straight hair. And that's
Yeah.
how their hair is. Whereas when people are straightening their hair, it just doesn't look right. And this is the problem I have with hair straightening. Like, okay, if you want to do that, if it makes you feel more beautiful, do that. But it's so damaging. Why are we promoting like these damaging like treatments to hair when you could just have your natural texture of hair? Because even curling your hair is not quite as damaging as taking out a flat iron and straightening. Like you're basically ironing your hair. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Why?
Yes, I mean, when my daughter started to do that, I tried it a little bit, and it did make my hair look a lot longer because when we have curly hair, we never have it, hanging down all the way because it just tends to,
Yeah.
it,
It gets a
so
little matted up in places, and I have that problem like where like if I'm not careful, like it'll get tangled here, here, and here. But I did try straightening my hair a few times and I gave up right away because I noticed it was making my hair like become really red, and not even like naturally like from henna, but it was like bleaching out my hair from the heat. and I didn't like it.
Yeah. Well, mine would just start to break, and so it got shorter when I did that. So I decided, I mean, it looked longer for a little while, but then
Yeah.
it got shorter. And so I decided to just stop doing that.
Yeah, because basically you had damaged the hair cuticle at that point, because the more heat you apply, it puts more damage over time. But I love like naturally curly, wavy hair, so I think this painting's really beautiful.
Yeah, I enjoy doing it. And it's really an interesting technique of how to get it, because there are, even though this is black hair, there are highlights in the hair, and you can see how the curls have little highlights. Each one of them does.
But
But
I've
I
seen,
love doing that.
can we talk about multi-ethnic people, somebody who might be half black and half white? She looks like somebody that's of mixed race, which is very indicative of like somebody living in America these days. I think she looks like a mixed
Yeah.
race person, and I really think she's pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking at a model, and the model was a mixed race person. But this isn't, you would not recognize the model from this, because I just went with my imagination, just used that as a reference and did my own thing. And I'm happy with how it came out.
It's beautiful. I think you did a really good job, and I hope more people watch that video.
Yeah, I made it a little bit shorter. I didn't share every little thing, because I felt maybe when I was sharing too much, every little moment, every little thing I did, maybe that was a little bit too long. But this one is only about 5 minutes to watch.
I think 5 minutes for an art video, that's probably a good place, like a good gauge. So anyway, everybody should watch that video. I really enjoyed seeing how it came from a drawing, because I looked in your Instagram. I saw how you started out. It looked like a painting, like an outline, and how you progressed.
Yeah.
It's amazing how it went from that.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a different technique from what a lot of people do. A lot of people very painstakingly will draw using a pencil, whatever, and it's very fine lines, and it's a beautiful drawing, but you can't see it, and then they paint over it. I don't see the point of doing that. If I paint over it, you're not gonna, nothing will remain. So I just do is, I'm sort of sketching it, but with paint. And it's just a preliminary thing, which gets swallowed up, and swallowed up by all the paint. And I don't worry about it, because I change the appearance of the face as I move along, and get it to be what I want it to be.
Maybe that's the best way to approach painting, because it's like it evolves anyway. Like, why go to the time to draw if you're going to paint over it? That's a good point. It's a very good point.
Yeah, and I don't really even have great hand-eye coordination. So I show people that I make mistakes all the time. Like, I made a really big mistake on that eye, and then I corrected it. So big deal, right?
Well, that's the good thing about paint, I feel like. Whereas if you're doing like an ink drawing, it's harder. But with paint, like, you can add layers to it, and it's great because you can build it up. It gives it more texture. Like with the hair, like I feel like that gives it texture because you can kind of build up the layer. That's what I think. It's a really great medium.
Yeah, I love this medium. I love doing it. I don't know, I mean, honestly, don't know if anybody's watching, because I started to build up some views on my painting videos, and then they subtracted some of those views. So that was weird.
Yeah, I want to ask, like, and I think we know because I read some things online. It seems like we are getting penalized because some bot makes a channel that's like telling everybody to come comment on their channel or friend their channel. And then YouTube says, oh, those are low quality views, and they take our views away. That seems to be what's happening. Like, I have a lot of bots lately, like Jeremy or Cool Canadian or all these people, and I'll go look at their channel.
Yeah.
There's some content.
But I don't know if they stole our views, or they only show up to people who don't have a lot of views,
Well, I just really think, like, YouTube says they're regulating themselves and they're like catching all these things, but why are they allowing these bot channels to exist? Like,
Yeah, I don't see those channels disappearing. They keep coming back.
They keep coming back as something else, and I'm like, I don't even know what the point is of the channel, because the channel just like promotes some video game like playing, and I'm like, I don't really understand. Like, I guess they're hoping that they can keep that channel and that it gets enough subscribers that they're going to be able to put ads on it. That's the only thing I can think of, but I don't see any ads on those videos. And they
Well,
sometimes,
no, because nobody's going to subscribe to them. They have nothing.
but some of these bot channels have 40,000 subscribers. I'm starting to get some weird bot channels, and it's weird. I don't know what's going on, but YouTube needs to fix it pretty fast, because it's funny how they get mad at us if our content isn't this, and this, and we need to do that, and that. And then sometimes they take away our monetization if we're a real channel, because they say something was not suitable for advertising. Yeah. But then we have these bot channels just running around doing all that. They can't monitor things on their end. But anyway, whatever. I shouldn't sound like I'm ungrateful towards YouTube, but I'm grateful we have the platform. I just think it has a lot of issues.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess I should start telling YouTube about the videos that have folk songs on them that they pretended belonged to somebody else.
Yeah, because didn't that one guy, Daniel Kelly, say that
Yeah.
it was a song, a German song from 1949, but then they think it's Elvis's song. And this also happened though with a song, I believe, that you had as background music that was copyright free. It was out of copyright. And then they were saying that it was somebody else's song. And I actually did end up reporting that one, because this entity had just like published a CD with that music. They took copyright free music and were marketing it to make money, but that didn't mean that they owned the copyright to that song. It was one of those songs that was, I think, created back in the 1920s, and it was out of copyright. Do you remember what I'm talking about, that video?
Yeah. I think it was Aya in Scotland, and it was actually Old Lang Syne, sung by
Yes.
a lady who has long since passed away, and it was in the 1920s. Yeah.
And the song is definitely out of copyright, but there was an entity, I tracked it down, because I guess they're selling that song. They took that music and they made a CD, or they made an online digital thing, and so they're getting credit as this being their original works, but YouTube never goes to verify that. They just take the word of this entity.
Well, I mean, yeah, they pretended it was a different song. They called it Orchard something.
Yeah, something like that. Like they gave it some
Yeah, it wasn't even, what it was, which was Old Lang Syne.
No. And it'd be one thing if they had sung their own version of it and we were using that, but no, you were using the out of copyright version of a woman that has since passed away, which is definitely out of copyright.
Yeah. But I guess I have to figure out how to report this. I didn't report it, but you said you did, right?
I did, and I don't know if they ever fixed it. Did they ever fix it to where you got ads back on that?
No, they never informed me that they did. And every time I check, they still, what gets me is they wrote on my description. You know how I prepared the description, and I wrote the lady's name and all the information about where I got it. So I was very upfront about what it was and where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
And they overwrote that with a totally false description of what the song is.
That's ridiculous. It's almost like they just decided, oh, this entity like used that song and they made a CD with it, but that doesn't mean that entity owns that song, because they don't.
Yeah, I know. I just didn't fight it enough. I was hoping that by the time I had 30,000 subscribers, which I do, not on this channel, but on the other one.
Yeah.
I was hoping that by then YouTube would send me an actual person to talk to. If I had a person to talk to, I could learn a lot from them about how to monetize my channel better. And at the same time, I could complain about things like this. Because I heard that once you have a certain number of subscribers and your channel has a certain size to it, that they will allow you to actually talk to a real person.
That's what I've heard. Like, is it around 30,000 to 40,000, somewhere in there? So maybe
I don't know. I have 30,000, but still no help.
Well, maybe, like, I'm hoping, because your channel's going to continue to grow, like eventually YouTube needs to address this. Like, YouTube, are you going to address the fact that you have bot channels that are running rogue on your platform, but you won't let us monetize a video that's perfectly suitable for ads? Like a lemon or a pear or whatever, like a piece of fruit hanging on a tree, or like somebody outside standing next to a rose bush. That's very like unadvertiser friendly, but yet, I mean, I think they need to address these issues. I really do.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Do we have any other comments from other people?
Let me
Oh,
see if we had
there's
any.
Bob Judge, cook eggs thoroughly. And he says south-facing windows are better for indoor garden if you're in the northern hemisphere. Okay.
Well, that would be great if you didn't live in an apartment complex. Like, yes, you could definitely have that, but the whole story was that I live on, the sun sets in the west, rises in the east. Like in the morning, I get 2 hours of sunlight. Okay. And there's a wall and there's houses on the other side of the wall. And I live in the back of the apartment complex. So you literally can only have so much sunlight when you live. So if you own a house, yes, you could definitely do that.
Well, the other thing you could do is if you were on the penthouse, you had a penthouse apartment, and then you could have like a garden there.
Yeah, if you lived on the top floor of the penthouse up like in New York City, like some people can have like a little garden up on their top roof. That definitely works. But I guess what I just got tired of was that people that they own houses, they have yards, they have plenty of sunlight. They would tell me, well, you should definitely be gardening. Like you shouldn't have stopped, but they didn't know how hard I worked for like 2 years just to make some plants live and how many hours I would be out there like fighting bugs and all sorts of things. And they didn't know that. They just dismissed everything I said and said that I wasn't trying hard enough to garden anymore.
Really? I mean,
Yeah.
they didn't have better things to do with their life than criticize you.
I don't know, like that's another thing though. I think I give too much credence to criticism. So I should just be like, okay, whatever, that's your opinion.
Well, I guess I have problems with criticism of my books, especially by people who write things that have nothing to do with my books.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is I'm very amused by some of the criticism of your books because it seemed like some of the people, they didn't even read your book. So I don't think they can even criticize your book if they didn't read it. It seemed like a couple of people were just upset that Theodosia wasn't like this virgin bride or something. Like it seemed like they were upset that maybe she had a sex life with Jean Lafitte. That's almost kind of the impression I got, that they were upset that maybe she had some sort of romance, like that bothered them.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. I could be wrong, but that's almost the impression I get of the whole Theodosia thing. Like people put her up on this pedestal, maybe. I don't know. Could I be wrong?
no, I think that's part of it. Might not be the whole thing, but that is definitely part of it.
Well, this is the reason I kind of feel that way is because they want her to be a martyr. They want her to die at sea. And there's this story about how she died at sea wearing like a white dress. Like why? Why on earth do we have this story? We don't know how she died. And wouldn't it have been much more probable that she was picked up by somebody and maybe she went on to be with someone else? Maybe it wasn't Jean Lafitte, but wouldn't that be more probable than, oh yeah, she died at sea, walking the plank, wearing a white dress? Like it just sounds so martyrish, really.
Well, I doubt she was wearing white at the time because her son had just died. And so why would she be wearing white? She'd probably be wearing black.
But did you know there's some historians that are like promoting that story? And I might not even be a Theodosia expert, but they're totally wrong because they don't know anything about costume history. Because I don't think, like you said, like she would have been wearing that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Like, how are you going to keep a dress completely white on a it doesn't make any sense. The whole story is ridiculous. But there was
I think it's because later they say that there was this ghost woman who would show up on the South Carolina shore. So, and obviously the ghost lady was wearing white.
That's a legend. That's not the real history, but people give more credence to that than to your story, which in a way sounds more probable, even if it is fictionalized. It's kind of the same thing with Magnificent Century. Some people are very scandalized about it because, oh my gosh, like the ladies are wearing costumes that show part of their body, or oh my gosh, somebody drank some wine. Like it's kind of the same idea. Like I feel like they're scandalized that maybe she was a real person and she wasn't like an angel or something. That's just the impression I get. And I don't think I don't think their criticism is historically accurate. So at the end of the day, we can't really maybe give it as much credence if they can't read the book and like come up with a better criticism.
Yeah, well, I guess I just have to get over it because that criticism is not going away.
No, it's probably not going away, but you also have to remember too, this is just a thought, is only a few people have read the book, and there's still potential that you can introduce it to new people and maybe to your students, and a new generation of people can read it and make up their minds for themselves, as opposed to just some people that have this very
Well, that's the problem, is you can only launch a book once. It was launched, and it was basically, just like launching a ship. It went and sank really early. So I would have to figure out a way to relaunch it.
well, maybe I just say like don't give up, because sometimes people do discover books after publication and they become more popular after the person has passed on than they were. Like Van Gogh, he definitely wasn't a popular artist during his lifetime. It was more after his passing and people discovered his art and they really loved it. In his lifetime, he wasn't quite as popular.
Well, that's true. That could happen with my art.
Or it could happen with your book. You can't give up. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to be like completely like head in the clouds, but you never know. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, well, yeah, we have to think positively, and that's true of the coronavirus as well. There are going to be some really bad things happening in the next couple of months, but maybe, who knows, maybe some good things will come of it too.
Perhaps that's true. So should we probably end here? Because I guess like I've taken us so far away from like the whole coronavirus thing.
Yeah, but we did actually have some comment. There were people listening, and I am feeling good about that.
No, I think that's really good. I like these discussions. I think they're really useful. I like to hear what you have to say about this issue. What I wanted to preface about the coronavirus is I just don't feel like I have as much to say about that, but other topics I feel like I can speak about a little bit more.
Okay, well, I enjoy talking to you about every topic that we bring up.
No, definitely. Because I have not been following the arc of the coronavirus story. So I just didn't, like, for instance, when you told me the whole thing about how you wanted someone else to pay for the test, I wasn't aware of that because I didn't follow that discussion on Facebook.
Okay, well, that's all right. I don't always get to follow every status that you have. So you didn't see that status. It's okay. I just wanted to share with the world that the libertarian outlook is not what you think, not you personally, but what some people think that it is. I think a lot of people, my progressive friends, were surprised that I took a stand on something that is more like what they would say, but not for the same reasons that they would say it.
Yeah, you had a logical explanation because it's a conflict of interest, right?
Exactly. And it kills me that some of my conservative friends didn't get that.
But maybe they didn't get it because at the end of the day, conservatives and liberals, even though they really love to hate each other, kind of think more alike than actually true libertarian people like yourself, who have a problem with the conflict of interest with something rather than who's paying for it. Maybe that's the issue.
Yeah. So hopefully we have had some people listening. Some people have already commented, and maybe some more people will comment after we say goodbye.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds good to me.
Okay, well, thanks for talking to me, Julia.
Oh, no, definitely. I feel like I always learn a lot of new things. That was very interesting. I feel like I learned some new things today. And I'll tell you this, like, I have a burgeoning interest in libertarianism over the last 3 or 4 years. And when I hear how you explain these issues, it really makes me want to continue to explore this path more.
Okay, very good. So hopefully we will continue and have some of these conversations in the future.
Definitely. Well, you have a nice night, Aya.
Okay, you too, Julia. Good night.
Bye.